Guys, there's a fucking crab. There's just like there's a crab. I don't know what they're doing, what they're going into. What is going on? What on earth is going on? This is amazing. What? It's like a Mirelurk from Fallout. That's all I can think about. Wow, this is an awesome costume. If you made this is absolutely amazing. You did such a good job. Oh, thank you. We hugged. Sweet. That's so fun. Never change. Love silly people.
For allowing fear, overwhelm, or indifference to keep us numb, passive, and silent in the face of white supremacy and racism. For benefiting from the occupation of stolen land here on Turtle Island and in Palestine. For benefiting from colonialism and the enslavement of African and indigenous people. For not honoring all bodies as unique, essential, whole, and sacred, for the ways in which we allow ableism to get in the way of working towards collective liberation. For allowing our money to fund increased policing and militarization, mass incarceration, and the exploitation of natural resources. From not heeding the call for reparations for past and continued harms, from colonialism and enslavement to mass incarceration and police violence. For allowing violence against Palestinians to be committed in our names, including the recent attacks on Jenin and in Lebanon, the continuous theft of Palestinian land and the destruction of Palestinian homes, olive groves, schools, and places of worship. For ignoring Palestinian civil society's call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israeli occupation and oppression. For ignoring the repression and targeting of Palestinian artists, poets, educators, cultural workers, and activists. For not speaking up against anti-Arab racism and Islamophobia. For not challenging white supremacy within white Jewish communities, thereby erasing or marginalizing Jews of color, Mizrahi, and Sephardic Jews. For allowing Jews to use claims of anti-Semitism to justify racism and violence. For not imagining a Judaism free from nationalism and white supremacy. For allowing shame to divide us to participate in Christian dominance and disconnect us from our rich traditions and histories. For the denial of access to traditional wells and springs and deliberate destruction of tens of thousands of olive trees and fruit-bearing trees being done in the name of Jewish safety. And while we have this list here, we will never be able to fully and ever be able to name all of the ways in which we, as people who live in a country whose money is going to fund all of the ongoing violence today, not just in Palestine, not just in Lebanon, but in many ways in different places across the world. We will never be able to take full responsibility, but we can use this time to think about the ways that we can fight harder and push for a better and liberated future for all of us. And so we are going to start wrapping up this ritual. We are going to say the Jewish prayer of mourning, which is the Mourner's Kaddish, which some of you have maybe come for our collective Kaddishes before, and we're handing out words from it. Its words are old, it's in Aramaic, it is a lot to say. You will also hear that we are using the word Yisrael, which is a word that means literally to wrestle with God, which I think those of us who come from Jewish backgrounds are maybe doing. And I think of it as a people and certainly not a place. And so as we use this words, know that that is where that comes from. We will also hear the shofar at the end. May its call pierce our souls. May it waken us to the ways that we have done wrong and to the ways that we can do better. May it give us strength to act in greater solidarity with the people of Palestine, Lebanon, and all who are suffering at the hands of capitalism, white supremacy, colonialism, occupation, and apartheid. So we'll start to gather again as we get copies of the Mourner's Kaddish, and then we will say it together.
Come back into a circle here. If you don't know this prayer, you have the English transliteration there. But also feel welcome to let the words wash over you. I know there can be some grief if you come from a lineage where this is your tradition, but you don't have access to the language and you don't feel connected to it. There can be some grief in that. So just welcoming you wherever you are. Welcoming you wherever you are. So much of the grief for so many of us Jewish folks is how fractured and the shitstorm that is our Jewish institutions. And so you might not have a lot of connection to Jewish lineage, even if it's where your ancestry is. So I just want to honor that, and we welcome you even with that, and especially maybe because of that. The words of this prayer say nothing about grief. We are exalting, we are praising life, and we are fighting for the living because they can't. They can't. They have martyred themselves. It is upon us, as we say, Aleinu, it is upon us to fight for the living. And I encourage you to come by after we close the container to read or contribute to this Mourn the Dead, Fight the Living. And I invite folks to come even closer so we can create a collective voice, so we can hear one another. This is such a special thing to gather in ritual together. Do you often sing or pray? Do you do this every day? Do you get to do this every day? I don't. I don't get to be gathered with people and to gather our voices. So this is a holy thing. So let's soak it in and let it, as it says in Psalm 27, Chazak v'ya'ametz libecha, strengthen and give us courage. Kaveh Elia, to have hope. The story, the end of the Jonah story, which I had forgotten until I reread it. Do you know how it ends? It has a happy effing ending. He goes to Nineveh. He goes, we know the whale part. Finally, he says, okay, I'll go to Nineveh. And the story is that they all perform tshuva. The king himself puts on sackcloth and gets down and prostrates himself before life and says, I've done harm, and they amend their ways. So it is also a story of hope that we must not give up. Kaveh Elia. These are words that many of us say every day these 49 days. So let us strengthen ourselves and have hope and fight for the living, and let us say this prayer.